Let's make an off the mat project. Hi, and welcome to my channel. My name is Kelsey. I also call myself Dinosaur Mama, and today we are doing an off the mat cardstock project. Now, I already have a tutorial on how to make one of these and in Cricut Design Space, how to break it all up, but I wanted to do an updated version where I also show you how to create the SVG file for this using a coloring page that you can find online. I am going to be making Spider-Man. I made this for my son's 5th birthday. I attached some strings so that we could hang it, and it was a big hit. It was easy to create. The whole thing probably takes about 10 minutes to assemble when you break it down in the right way. So today I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to show you how to create the SVG, and really you can utilize this for any sort of character if you can find a coloring page of that character online. Let's get started in Inkscape. So we're going to get started over by Googling a coloring sheet, and you can pick something online. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Actually, like the simpler outline, the better. Just make sure it has like decently dark outlines, and then we're gonna save it. Make sure it saves as like a JPEG or as a PNG. Next, we're gonna wanna upload that into Inkscape. You can just drag and drop it right over to the screen. And we're gonna wanna trace bitmap. So you'll go to Object, and towards the bottom, it'll be Trace Bitmap. That's how it is on a Mac. I have it over on my side panel, so I'm gonna have it open there. You can change the threshold if it needs thicker lines, just make it bigger, and then hit apply, and you're gonna delete the original image. Next, you'll go down to path and hit break apart, and now this is going to take everything inside and make it into its own piece of the SVG. Now from here, I like to grab the back part and change the color of that. Now for Spider-Man, I ended up doing something a little different because I didn't want to have to glue on all those individual red pieces. I ended up making that net kind of look over it in black. And then I made the base of the actual off the mat image red. So there are two ways to do it, right? You can keep it the way it is, make the black outline your background, and then you can glue all those individual red pieces. However, what I did was first I grabbed everything that was supposed to be blue and I changed that to blue, right? So I am grouping this all together. You can do it however you want. You don't have to group them. It's actually probably easier if you don't group them. And by group, I mean attach. So basically it would just be one big part of the SVG. It would be one layer. All the colors together would be one layer. And so I'm going through and I'm changing everything that needs to be blue to blue. And the best way to do this is basically just pull up an image of your character off to the side and kind of see where you're supposed to match everything. I did miss one piece, I think, when I was making this originally, and I had to go back and cut it out. There's like a little triangle right there between his leg, and I should have differenced that, and I forgot to, so I went back and did it. So now I'm changing his eyes. We're gonna make that white. And this is the color cardstock I'm gonna use for each of those pieces. And now I need to figure out what I'm gonna do for my red. So I deleted these like small bits because I was like, oh, I don't really need that to be cut out. And like I said, originally, I was like, oh, I grabbed all the same color, right, the black, and changed it to red. And then I united it, right? I welded it together. That's the same as weld if you're on Cricut Design Space. And so I was thinking about how I didn't want to have to glue all these little red pieces. And so I was like, how can I make it so that I don't have to do that? And so what I did was I duplicated my back piece where it's black right now, and I am going to make that red. And then what I decided to do was difference my net, or I guess the webbing on his suit. I differenced that into the black. So I'm gonna show you how to do that in terms of like pieces where there's like a lot of pieces like this. Doing it this way made it where I just had to glue the web piece down. So see how all these are all little individual pieces? What I'm gonna do is I am going to duplicate my black background. So I'm grabbing that now and I am duplicating it. I just hit Command D and I sent it to the back. I did change the color to red. I sent it all the way to the back. And now I'm grabbing, see, I differenced it. I grabbed the red mesh and I differenced it into that black. And now I have this like mesh part of my Spider-Man. And then I have my red backing. So these are all my different parts, and this SVG is ready to go. So I could save it. Make sure you save it as an SVG, and now we can upload it into Cricut Design Space. Don't worry about the sizing just yet because we're going to change everything over there. So I have my Spider-Man uploaded into Cricut Design Space. You're going to want to size it first to whatever you want it to be. I ended up doing 22 inches total, so wide it was 22 inches, and pardon me, I do have a child with me who is sick today. And so I have my Spider-Man SVG uploaded and I'm changing it. It says 24 inches. I ended up making it 22 inches total. So the reason that I went with 22 inches is because I originally cut his pants, the blue part of his pants, in half. And I was like, oh, I'll just kind of make like a seamless look on this. And I ungrouped it, and then that's when I started to do all of my slicing and all of my duplicating. So you can hide all contours, and you can start, this is why you don't actually need to attach over in your SVG. You can kind of work piece by piece. And the reason I'm duplicating and then hiding and contouring is because I want to make the pieces as close to 11.5 inches or lower, because that's the size of my paper. So basically the two techniques you're going to want to use here are duplicating and then contouring out pieces so that they become smaller than that 11.5 if that's the paper size you're using. If you have bigger paper, obviously you have more room to work with. If you have smaller paper, like an 8.5 by 11, then you have to work within those boundaries and keep everything under that size. So for the next time that I would do this, when I was making the SVG file, again, I apologize for the noise in the background. I would basically just not attach anything. So I would not unite it when I was over there. I would just keep everything separate. That way I don't have to go through and do all of this contouring. But the good thing about learning how to do this and do all the contouring is if you're using someone other than your own SVG, you would be able to understand how to break it down. So now I'm grabbing a square, and this is going to represent my paper. And so obviously our backing, you'll see there's the exclamation point, and that means it's too big, right? You can't cut that on a normal size piece of paper. So if you had a 24-inch mat, those pants would be fine. Or if you had 24-inch paper, those pants would be fine. But I wanted to use 11.5 by 11.5, which is the max you can do on 12 by 12 paper. So basically I'm slicing this, I am slicing this to resize the pants. Now, originally I wanted to have no seams, so I duplicated the pants and then I like overlaid it so that it was 11.5 by 11.5, and then like there was like a half an inch overlay. However, I resized my Spider-Man so that the pants would fit in between an 11.5 by 11.5. And again, this will depend on your paper size. So here I resized him to 24 inches. And again, I believe I resized him down again to like 22 inches. And you'll see I have that seam down his pants, so I moved it over, but I was like, this looks so stupid. And so I ended up welding those back together because I hated having that seam right like in his crotch. So now again, I'm grabbing 11.5 by 11.5. That is the max on a piece of 12 by 12 paper. If you're using 8.5 by 11 paper, your max is going to be half an inch smaller on both sides. So that would be 10.5 by 8. So that's what you would make your rectangle into. And so I'm going to overlay this, and then I actually ended up pushing it to the back just to see where I could slice it. So it kind of worked out nicely for when I would attach it. And so I wanted to place those seams in kind of like inconspicuous places. So obviously for the black, I kind of put the seams underneath his pants for the legs. You wouldn't be able to see that too much, right? Because it's going to be covered by the blue pants. And then I tried to do it like on his arms on a seam, so it wasn't like super raggedy. And so the best way for me to describe you doing this is to grab your paper, send it to the back. And by paper, I mean that size at 11.5 or that at 10.5. And you're going to want to send it to the back so that you can see. And you're going to want to place it on to your image. And then that way you can kind of see where all of your cutting is going to be. Now I'm going to have to slice both the black and the red. because I want to have my red as my base and then my black on top, and they're the same size. And so I duplicated those 3 panels that we just made, and I'm gonna send those to the back as well. And then I'm gonna start slicing and deleting. And the reason that I say deleting is you only need your original image that's sliced. You don't need all the extra gray. So you can start slicing, and obviously this is going to be different for every image that you're doing. So you can reference down below and go check out my Mickey Mouse one that I made to see how I sliced that. I do my best with seams. It's not a seamless picture. It does have lines. However, when I went to go glue them down, I did my best to cover them up so you don't really see them very much. So as you're slicing, you're going to slice and then delete any of the gray. And if it's helpful, you can always change your gray squares to a different color like purple or pink or something that's not included in your image. That way it really pops and you can see it, so you know to delete it. So the only thing I would say once you have everything deleted and ready to be cut is to start moving things around on your paper so you're maximizing out your 12 by 12s. Like, you know, here I can move around this very funny looking leg. I know it's a little bit strange looking, but I promise it's a leg. And I'm just moving it around so that it fits onto the paper a little bit better. And so that way I'm maximizing my pages and I'm not wasting any paper. And then once you cut everything out, we can go over to assembling. I'm going to be using just some craft glue and the string for his web. And that is it. So for assembly, I'm speeding this up a little bit, but we are going to start with our backing, and I honestly just used clear Scotch tape. Now you're going to want to flip everything, make sure you reverse it, basically mirroring it to do the taping on the back. Some people like to put a styrofoam cut board, like a poster board, but you know, like the thicker ones as backing to make it a little bit sturdier. I did not do that. I have just 80-pound cardstock. You can also use like a thicker cardstock to do this and double it up. However, I just used my cardstock and then my Scotch tape to tape everything together. And it worked fine because once I glued the black part over it, it stayed really well. It was thick enough. So totally up to you on how you do it. And then I flipped it over. I know my reds look different colors, and I could not for the life of me figure out why, because they are 100% the same color. Like all 3 of them look different, but they are definitely the same pack of red. Like I ordered them all at the same time. And so now I'm using my craft glue and I'm going to glue everything down. So again, you want to reverse tape everything down so that the tape is in the back of your backing, and then you start attaching all of your other pieces on. You can use craft glue for this, you can use hot glue for this. I prefer my quick drying craft glue. You see I'm even going over some spots because it's drying so fast. And actually for the rest of the like netting, I guess you could say, the web, I went back and used my craft glue. Like I did bigger parts and then still went back under and re-glued down so that it was nice and secure. Also, what's great about this glue, which I'll have it linked below, is that it dries clear. So I didn't have to worry about any sort of like white spots or wet looking spots. So I'm gluing all of my pieces down, and the way that I did those 3 squares when I cut my image, they like didn't overlap perfectly. Like it kind of like I did it by eye, you know, so it kind of was like slightly lapped over. I hope that makes some sense. So when I put the black down, you don't really see my seams from the red, which is great since the colors look like 2 different color reds. And so now I'm finishing gluing up everything, and I'm making sure everything's aligned. So you see me ripping kind of the piece off because I felt like it was not perfectly lined up. And I have my image open off to the side, even though this is a pretty easy image to kind of place everything. If you had something with more details, the best way to do it is just to have your image off to the side and work off of it. And so I'm gluing everything down, and then we'll move on to our blue. And really this is it. You just kind of assemble everything with your glue and place everything down. Just make sure you're getting all your layers right. And I don't show it, but for the string, I took my tweezers and I poked a hole right, like you see how those 2 fingers are kind of folded upwards, right where those 2 fingers are pointing in towards the center of his wrist. I poked a hole into that, and I strung some string through there, some like yarn through it. And I just taped the back of it to the back of the Spider-Man so you couldn't see it. And then I placed this on my wall and I attached the long piece of the yarn to another piece of my wall. And so it was a super cute decoration. And of course you can always make these bigger, and really all that matters is the way that you set everything up. So the easiest way to describe making an off the mat project is you take your paper size, you decrease it by 0.5 on both ends, and then you slice that into your image so that all of your pieces fit into that kind of size. And once you have all your pieces sized out, you cut everything out and you start placing it on like a puzzle. And that's truly how you make an off the mat character. Again, I have another tutorial with Mickey Mouse if you want to see how that one is done. You can check that in the links below, and that will walk you through again how to do the design space setup if this one wasn't super clear, and it'll walk you through assembly as well. So they're pretty much the same thing. This is just an updated one where you actually get to see how to make the SVG pretty quickly, and you can make that SVG with any coloring page. So I always think that's great. You can start making your own SVGs super, super easily, especially with these characters that are kind of trademark. If you're using them for personal use, I always suggest just kind of using it based off of a coloring page. And so there is our whole project. Thank you so much for joining me as we made our 22-inch Spider-Man. I hope you learned something in this class. If you have any questions, don't forget you can always comment them down below and I will do my best to answer. If you learned something from this project, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. It helps me so much. Please subscribe if you want to continue to learn new projects, Cricut techniques, SVG tutorials, all things crafty. And share this with one of your crafty friends if you think that they'll learn something as well. And don't forget to check out my blog below where you'll find free SVG files, tutorials, and also my Inkscape course on how to make a portrait SVG. Stay crafty!